Should strip clubs be shut down in the name of equality? Sheffield has one strip club, but a judicial review today will consider whether the City Council did not take account of equality law when it gave it a licence. The outcome of the review could affect licensing decisions by other councils across the country. Charlotte Mead is branch leader for the Women's Equality Party in Sheffield and supported the campaign to bring the judicial review. Stacey Clare is a co-founder of the East London Strippers Collective. I asked Charlotte Mead, who was outside the court in Sheffield, why she supported the review.
I think in a wider aspect, what we're really looking for is for it to be underlined really for the council that when they're considering their public sector equality duty within their sexual entertainment venue policy, that they need to take a wider view of what that means, because up until now they've taken a very narrow view of their duty, their statutory duty under the public sector equality duty, and we would like them to take a wider view of that and consider all the impacts of sexual entertainment venues, not just on the people that go there or the people that work there, but on the rest of society and the rest of that area and the rest of the city where they're giving licences.
Stacey Clare, you don't have a problem with the fact that in this case it's Spearmint Rhino in Sheffield, but you do not have a problem with strip clubs being opened.
The reason we set up the East London Strippers Collective in the first place was because we've seen a decline in our working conditions, and our working environments have been impacted by recent policy changes in 2009 under the Policing and Crime Act. We've seen our industry shrink overnight. The number of licences has halved in 10 years, and what the effect of that has been to increase the level of competition and toxicity between workers, and it's given a monopoly to existing licence holders. So in fact, without having dealt with the issue of working conditions and workers' rights in the first place, we have actually seen an increase in things like harassment, victimisation and exploitation within the industry, which is something we'd actually like to deal with. So we see the problems that do in fact exist within the industry, but we don't see the solution in shutting clubs down.
And Charlotte Mead, you do hear men who strip saying this point, well, if I want to strip and I get paid for it, why shouldn't I be able to?
Yeah, I think the choice element is also something that we need to look at a bit more carefully, because we can't pretend that in our society that everybody has the same choices, that everybody doesn't. There is plenty of people who don't have the opportunity to choose, and choice isn't made in a vacuum. If the choices that you've got are very limited because of your background, your experience, your support networks, things that you've happened to in your life, then we all make it dependent on those things.
Could I just jump in there? I believe, according to the Women's Budget Group, between 2010 and 2020, it's estimated that 86% of austerity cuts will affect women. Isn't that actually something that's worth looking at for the Women's Equality Party? Isn't that something that you really want to get behind?
I completely agree with you, but the answer to that is not to create jobs where women are still discriminated against.
But by removing those jobs, you put women more at risk. You marginalise women by taking those few options away.
Stacey Clare, if these clubs are closed, this could set a precedent such that other councils say, look, if I am to take account of wider gender issues, we as a council will have to refuse licences for strip clubs. If that happens, what happens to people who dance, members of, for example, your strippers collective?
Well, what happens is they are forced to make difficult decisions about their work life. And mark my words, if you take strip clubs away, the alternative is worse. I myself have worked in venues, private parties and outside licensed venues, and they're not safe.
What sort of things happen?
So in flats for stag parties, there's no security around. There's no protection. There's no infrastructure to keep me safe. Anyone can
just go underground.
Yeah, it just goes underground. And that kind of exploitation is far worse than what I'd like to see, a world where we have laws that protect sex workers and strippers.
Charlotte Mead, do you recognise that point? In what you are trying to achieve here, you are going to put women at risk.
The answer to women having to make these difficult choices and having to choose have that lack of choice and having to go into work like this when they don't want to. And I appreciate that, there are some women who have really properly chosen to go into this work, but those women are in the minority. And the answer to the issue is not to accept the few tidbits that are thrown at us from the table of power. The answer is to get a place at the table. And that's what the Women's Equality Party are trying to do. We need to get a place at the table so that 86%, so that 86% of austerity cuts don't fall on women. That's the whole point. The answer is not for us to accept, you're being sexualised and objectified, so we'll give you the right to be sexualised and objectified.
But
the point is that we need to be equal.
Do you accept, though, that one of the consequences of what you are trying to do with this judicial review will mean that there are women who are put in a more dangerous situation?
Not necessarily. I don't think so. No, I think communities have the right. Communities have the right under the legislation that we have at the moment to say that they do not want strip clubs in their cities and in their areas. They have the right to say that.
Stacey Clare,
you have to accept that the judicial review and your aims to shut down a strip club absolutely do put women at risk. And in response to your assumption that the number of women who rightly choose, who are empowered, who choose to go into this work are in the minority is an assumption. You'll never know. I mean, even I don't know, but in our community we have a range of reasons why women do this work. Some is because of lack of choice, and other it's because it's a genuine choice. But you don't if you want to create more options for women, you don't do that by removing some of them.
Stacey Clare, do you accept, though, that you are in an industry, or at least the strip club industry, is dying, that in 10 years' time it won't be here?
Well, I don't fully accept that because, as I said before, you will only be driving this underground. You can stamp the industry out on a visible level. What do you mean there's no evidence? I'm in the industry. I work in these private parties. I get work through agencies, and they are unsafe environments to work in. I work in them myself. What more evidence do you need?
Charlotte Mead?
There's no research evidence that shows that strip clubs will go underground. Actually, what happens is that men just go and do things that are less sexist.
Charlotte Mead there and Stacey Clare both talking to me this morning. And if you want to comment on that or any of the other items in our programme, please do so. You can email us or you can do so. Contact us on Twitter at BBC World at One, hashtag BBC Watto. And